Hello, everybody. Welcome to Malo Talk. And Lavette, what do?
Riffing on Latin rock.
We're riffing on Latin rock. Riffing on Latin rock. Once again, we have longtime Malo member, Timbalero extraordinaire, Mr. Leo Rosales, back in with us.
Hello.
And this is sort of a reunion here. So, Leo, I'm going to let you introduce our special guest that we have today.
It is an honor and a privilege to have this, after all of these years, to have this extraordinary privilege to introduce a man that had a great influence on my life and taught me so much. When I met him, I was only at the tender age of 18 years old. And he had been already in the business as a producer, as a sound man, for many, many years before I got there. So it is with great love and admiration I would love to introduce my one and only wonderful friend, Mr. David Rubinson.
Thank you. That was so nice.
I meant every word.
You said you only had my one and only friend. He's your only friend in the world?
Right now. Well, you know what I mean.
I've got an exclusive on Leo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He holds a special place in my heart.
All
And
right.
only he can occupy it. Let's put it that way.
There you go.
I can dig it. Mm-hmm. All right, so what's cooking? Longtime producer with Warner Brothers and Malo. How did you discover Malo? What made you say, did you see the guy somewhere and want to sign him? How did that evolve?
I see you brought me in here for my excellent long-term memory. I had a secretary. I was in San Francisco, and I had a secretary named Linda Rogoff. And she had a friend named Chris Wong. And she came to me one day and said, my friend Chris found this band, and I think you'd be interested. Carlos's brother is the leader of the band. And of course I was producing Santana. And I said, oh, great. So I met Chris Wong, and he took me up to this very small club on San Bruno Avenue, which is not the heart of the San Francisco show business area. And what did you say the name of it was?
It's called the Nightlife.
The Nightlife.
Silver and San Bruno Avenue.
Man, right next to the best barbecue in the city.
In town.
Yeah. And I went to hear the band. They were very rough. They were really, really rough. But they could play. And they had a sound which was very, very rare. And it was before they became what they later became with more horns. It was just a trumpet player who was Luis Gasca. And I'd worked with Luis when he was with Bongo Santa Maria, because I produced a lot of Bongo Santa Maria records. And they had a soprano saxophone player. But basically the sound of the band was two guitars.
Abel and Jorge.
Abel Zarate and George Santana, Jorge Santana. And they had a great sound, very unique sound. So I wanted to sign them. And in order to sign them, I actually took a tape off the soundboard at the Nightlife. You can imagine the quality of that.
Right.
And I flew down to Warner Brothers, and I said, I got a band, got to sign these guys. Did not tell them who was in the band, because I didn't want Warner Brothers to sign Carlos's brother.
Right.
Right? If they signed Carlos's brother, that would be the nature of the band, the identification of the band. They'd be stamped that way. And it was this rough tape, and the tape sounded great. And, generally whenever I brought something to Warner's, they would have an ear for it anyway, but they said yes. And then I told them that the leader of the band was Carlos's younger brother. And that blew their minds. They had not really realized that. So I signed Malo, And we went in the studio in San Mateo, Pacific Studios.
Right? Which is now a furniture store.
Yes. And we recorded the whole album, I think maybe 4 or 5 days, maximum.
It's crazy.
And there were problems in the band at the time, musically. Abel Zarate was a genius. He was really the genius in the band. He and Pablo Tellez, the bass player, they were so good musically, and they understood so much about arrangements and where everybody fell into place. And so first I took them out to the heliport in Mill Valley,
Right.
and we rehearsed for about a week. Now this is way before you joined the band.
Right.
We went out to the heliport, and we rehearsed, and I changed a lot of the arrangements only because we were going to record, which was a little different than just
Live.
having a lot of space live. But there was some problem musically in the band, and we did the best we could. The rhythm section was, Pablo was fantastic. He held the whole band together. He was the rock, the bass player. Really solid. Could have played with anybody. And there was a drummer in the band who was really a rock drummer. Didn't have Latin music really in him. He was Richard Smemich. Wow. Not bad. And
You're doing good.
yeah, two for two so far. And
It's coming back.
but he was a very strong rock drummer. And the problem was, and the conga player was very, very good. I forgot his name. I can't believe it. Who was the conga player originally? Your friend from Balboa.
Raul?
Raul?
No, well, Raul came in a little bit later. I forget, I don't remember the name.
Is it Pantoja or he came later?
No, he
It's
came
before
later.
Leo.
Victor Pantoja came in for the recording.
Oh no, he came in much later.
Yeah, but the conga player that you're referring to, I see him in my head, but he was an older guy.
He's probably on your shirt.
That was later. I think it was Raul.
Well, Raul, I know that they brought me in, and then
That was later we brought you in.
yeah, but Raul was after me. Because I remember bringing in a good friend of mine, George Bermudez. You, George?
Sure.
Yeah, and he came in an audition. Didn't go the way that he would have wanted. So then they had heard of Raul from Sapo, and I knew him. So
Well,
they
then I
invited
don't
him over.
remember who played congas
But he was good.
on the first album.
But
Well,
he
the
was
first
good.
album
He
was
good.
Victor Pantoja.
Really?
Yes,
Oh, and I know why.
right. It was Victor Pantoja.
Victor played on the first album because he was very tight with Luis.
Right.
He played on Luis's album, For Those Who Chant,
Yep.
and Victor played on that record. So Luis would have brought in Victor.
Right.
Victor was great.
Yeah.
The Timbalero was not great. Could barely play. And Richard Bean was the Timbalero. But he couldn't really play, and he wasn't really a timbalero. He was a trumpet player. So musically, there was a little bit of that wasn't so great.
Yeah. Some discrepancies.
The arrangements, and particularly the vocal arrangements that Abel did, were fantastic. As you can tell from Suavecito, I mean, that background part was what made that record a hit.
Right.
And it's been sampled a million times. But they had their weakness. Timbalero wasn't good, and it wasn't that important in the band then. The guitarists were important, and the vocals. So we went to the studio, we made the album, and I brought it to Warner Brothers. And I'll tell you a funny story. Warner Brothers just loved it right away. And they heard Suavecito right away as the single. I thought Just Say Goodbye was the first single.
Beautiful song.
And I had recorded that with Mongo, which is how I brought it into the recording. But They heard Suavecito, we went with Suavecito, and as a promotional device, they made up those plastic little envelopes of tortillas. Can you believe? Corn tortillas. And I don't remember when they still are in plastic envelopes
Right.
in the supermarket. And they put the Malo logo and they sent them to radio stations. But by the time they got to the radio station, they were covered in mold. And they were all,
Oh,
so it
wow.
became this whole thing. And it
was like,
actually
is he
helped
for
with
real?
promotion because people said, man, get this out of here.
Yeah.
So,
If I could ask a question, you might know that when the label that Carlos was on at that time, they were finding success in Latin music genre, so that Warner Brothers wanted to get in that stream of Latin music, Latin rock, and that was what spurred their interest in signing a band like Malo, because they wanted to get into the race of being able to adjust to the demographics that Santana was bringing. So they wanted to be part of that, and they found interest in Malo.
very possible.
Yeah, so that's a story that I heard, and it seemed to be correct, because I know when Carlos came out, all of a sudden we had other bands coming up, you know, Azteca, War, Tierra, and those kind of bands. And then Malo came up, and then I thought it was such a blessing to have signed with Warner Brothers, because, you know, I just remember all the cartoons. And it was a big company. You
Well,
know,
it was
and
a
to be
very
part
hot-
of it.
It was a very hot company,
Yeah,
but it was a very white company.
right.
And I had artists on Warner's. As an example, I was at Warner. I had Herbie Hancock on Warner's at the time. Thank goodness. And one day I was at Warner's, and they let go 3 artists the same day. Herbie, LaBelle, and Earth, Wind, and Fire. They let them go. Didn't know what to do with them. And we all went to Columbia because they were so white. You have to remember who was on the label then. It was like all the white folk singing, kind of rock and roll, white middle class rock and roll people. It wasn't hard rock. And they loved Malo, but they didn't reach a large number of the audience that Malo should have reached.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't think it was a blessing that we were on Warner's, except it would have been better to be on Atlantic, where I had a lot of other records, because they knew the Chicano marketplace, and they knew how to sell
Makes sense.
a lot of minority demographic records.
Yeah. Well, what did I know? I was only 18.
But they were very good people. And marketing Malo the way they did limited Malo's audience. They almost didn't market them as a Latin music band.
Yeah. You know, in talking to George Santana before, may he rest in peace, we were playing at the Black Oak in Sonora, and he had that same kind of a feel that Malo could have had a better shot. He didn't say it was because of the record company, but he had that kind of sentiment that you're expressing, that not enough was being done to promote the band.
No, especially internationally. I mean, I had tremendous success. Santana had tremendous success in Europe. Right?
Yeah.
And Malo was barely marketed in Europe.
Yeah. The farthest we went was into Canada.
They
and
should have
then
been
Puerto Rico,
a gigantic
Hawaii.
band. One of the problems was also that Chris Wong was the manager of the band. And he was a real estate guy, very nice guy, but hopelessly incompetent. I mean, really, lovely guy. He brought me the band. I gave him an office in my building. Didn't have any idea what he was doing. Artistically, he was brilliant. He discovered the first album cover, the calendar. Very smart, wonderful guy. But didn't know what to do.
In the music business.
So, music.
Yeah, in the music business.
But Malo should have been certainly in France, England, Spain, Portugal. God. So Europa, for example, was a #1 record all over Europe with Carlos. And it was an instrumental. It wasn't a Latin record. Right?
Right.
But Colombia, man, could they deliver? When they got a hold of something, they could really deliver. That's what they did for Herbie. Warner Brothers couldn't do anything with Herbie. And you know what happened with Herbie on Columbia? We had platinum records. So I don't think that Warner's knew what to do
With this band.
with that.
It wasn't shopped to any other companies, just Warner Brothers?
I
And
was
I was a 5-year contract. I remember that much.
yeah, but that was really my fault. I should have shopped at other places. But I didn't. Mistake. We couldn't go to Colombia because they had Carlos there. That would have been a big mistake. But I was tight with Ahmet Ertegun. I knew the people in Atlantic. Could have gone there. No problem. But I was really friendly with the people at Warner's. And in hindsight, it would have been better to have a record company that had more of a wider reach.
Tentacles out there, all over. What did you have to do with Bill Graham calling us in to do Pana for Fillmore the last days? Because I remember that we were out on tour and they told us, hey, Bill wants you guys on his Fillmore at the last
I
days.
had nothing to do with that.
Because you recorded us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you recorded us. I remember we came in for that. We came in on off tour. Maybe the next day we all showed up at Pacific Studios down in San Mateo, and we
Remember,
recorded
you're getting
live.
your chronology way out.
What's that?
Your chronology is way off.
What happened?
Recording Pana.
Yeah, for the Fillmore the last days.
What?
Yeah, we're on that record, and Bill
Yeah, I know,
introduces
but you
us.
didn't appear at the concerts?
No, and that's why he wanted us.
Last Day at the Fillmore, wasn't that well after the first album?
Well after the first album. Yes,
But
and
we
he
had
was
to
getting
record-
ready to close the
We had to
Fillmore down.
record Pana in the studio.
Right.
Didn't remember that.
Yeah, and Richard Kermode did that just genius piano solo
Yeah.
in one take.
Well, when he wasn't on heroin, he was a genius musician.
Right. I think
And he
during
broke my heart because I used him on records. He was a great guy,
Yeah.
great piano player, but
We lived next door to each other. I mean, literally down my stairs and up the stairs
What
to
a
his
great guy.
place. And he would play piano for me on Friday nights. We'd drink a little wine, smoke a little weed. Nobody was around, and he just would sit at the piano, and I just sit there listening.
yeah,
to
it was a heartbreaking story.
Yeah. But I think
I didn't
after
remember, I had nothing to do with it. Bill loved the band,
Yeah.
loved you guys.
he used to pick me up and kiss me on the forehead. He goes, "I love the way you play."
Well, he knew a good Timbalero when he heard one.
Yeah, he was really
And
nice.
you were
to
a
me.
real good one.
Oh, thank you. I learned from the best. Like, at that point, Chapito came out on the scene, and
Yes.
he was a force. Because I was thinking about it the other day when I was listening to some old tracks of me playing with Malo back in '72 at Schaefer, or the Village Gate when we played there. And I was listening to the solos, and I said, I sound like a drummer playing tom-toms. And I thought, I wonder why that is. And I remembered, well, when I was brought up, the Latin music that we listened to was música típica.
Yes.
Like music from Nicaragua,
Yes,
music
yes.
from Salvador,
Yes.
music from, Costa Rica. I wasn't listening to Eddie or Armando or
No, they were
Mongo.
playing on the rims.
Right.
Exactly.
And then when Santana came
Right.
out and Chapito was out, I was like, whoa, that is crazy.
People think timbale solos are on the rims and on the sides, and they don't realize the tonality
It's-
and
yeah.
changing the tone of the drum.
Right.
They didn't do that.
And that's why Tito Puente was so great because he was a vibe player.
Yes.
So he got as many tones out of the timbal
Yes.
that he could.
Yes.
And that's what made him
Yes.
a magical player.
Yes.
Yeah. So listening to Chapito was like an inspiration because I was brought up on the drums. That's what my love was. When I heard him play,
Do
at
you
that time,
remember that I tried to get you into Malo? Do you remember that? Into Santana?
yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you did.
You know why? What happened?
Well, why I didn't?
No, why did you? Were they looking for Timbalero?
Or that Santana was.
Yeah.
Because they had to fire the person that was playing
Yeah.
because he was very mischievous. And that's putting it lightly.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
And you wouldn't do it.
Right.
I really respected you for that, but I'm really sorry.
I am too.
You want to talk about why you didn't do it?
I know. I'm curious now, Leo.
Oh, well,
You don't
here's...
know why you didn't do it?
No, he never told me that
You know
story.
why.
Yeah.
I'm more curious of what that dude did.
Great story. No, this is Leo. This is the essence of Leo, this story.
Well, when I was at the tail end of my journey with Malo, I started to delve into drugs a little more than I should have, or should have at all. So there towards the end, when we started to wane, we were working on the Malo Dos album. Some financial problems erupted during a meeting, and half the band quit. So we had put a whole new band together.
I'm going to talk about that later.
Yeah. So from that point on, it was a climb up the ladder again, because the team that we had assembled before that was just an incredible set of music. We had Raul Rico, Pablo Diaz, Richard Kermode, George Santana, and
Pablo.
Tom
And that was,
Harold,
okay, so
Tom
that was
Poole.
my next
Pablo.
question.
Yeah.
So
Pablo.
We had this
And-
incredible band.
And
Right.
And
Zarate.
yeah, Abel Zarate.
Those were the keys.
Yeah.
Musically.
Those were two.
so when did the band members change? When
Well, it was during the negotiations of the Malo Dos album.
Yeah, but don't get off the subject.
Yeah, right.
Why
So,
won't you take
so
your-
here we go. So at that period in time, I started doing some cocaine here and there, and smoking weed and drinking, and all of a sudden, before I knew it, the cocaine had put a little hook in me, and I started to realize that I was starting to look for it. Like we'd be at shows, and I'd look for that guy, and there's that guy, and I'd go get that with that guy, and then I'd get on the stage, and I'd be amped, or I'd be too much scotch or too much weed, and having accidents on the stage of forgetting things. We were playing with Mountain one day, and I was in the back drinking and carrying on and showing off. And when we got up on the Mountain played, and then we played, and I was doing Suavecito, and the lights were just on me and nobody else in the whole place. Thousands of people. And I went to sing, and I completely flatlined and forgot the words. So those things were starting to show up. Playing with Francisco, like playing in the back, and Francisco would be sitting there looking at me like, "You're a fool, dude. What are you doing?" So when we went out on the stage, we were doing Latin Boogaloo, and we were doing a solo together, and he just kicked it into hyperspace speed to just to destroy me on the stage.
oh my God.
And I couldn't keep up with him, and I just floundered, and at the end, I went backstage, and I was like, what the fuck, dude, what are you doing? Why would you do that to me? And then he goes, who do you think you are? He goes, people pay big money to come and see you play. And you're back there showing off, playing, drinking, carrying on. He goes, so I needed to show you a lesson. That, what, there's a time and place,
That's
but
right.
this ain't the time and this ain't the place. And I was like, he was older than me, and he was a
yeah.
master.
Big time.
I disrespected the master, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he straightened me
You
out.
disrespected the music.
Yeah, the music, exactly.
For
And
Francisco, it was
Yeah.
about the music.
Yeah, it was about the music. And then he chastised me for allowing that to happen. So those are the kind of things that started to show up because of my tendency to want to get high before going on the stage. So that happened, and eventually I quit the band. I met somebody, you know who it is, and we knew each other for 2 weeks and got married. So I was afraid that by being married and playing with Malo, that I was going to become a alcoholic, adulterating musician. So I was like, you know, in this headspace of like, oh man, what am I going to do? You know, this is a great person to be married to, and then she's going to have a baby, he's going to have my kid, and this and that and the other. And so I quit the band, just like that. And I'm ashamed to admit it, but it was very impulse driven. It wasn't a response to anything, it was a reaction. So it was like, you know, just, I called Jorge and he was like, is this a joke? And I said, no, you know, I'm quitting. And that was the end of my tenure with Malo at that point. So, and then I got involved in I was looking for spirituality.
Yeah.
I was looking for some help because I felt that I needed help. My father was an alcoholic. My uncles drank too much. My mother's brother. So I felt I was in that line of, you know, of despair. And my sister got me involved in this cult under the guise of a Christian spiritual, you know, place. So I was there and, you know, I gave everything up. Cal Jader called me to play. The Pointer Sisters called me to play. And I was like, oh, I'm serving Jesus now. And, you know, you're not in the plan.
That's what you told me.
Yeah, you're not in the plan. And they were like, everybody was like, okay, what happened to this guy? You know, he's Winterland,
No,
the
I
Fillmore
begged you. I
West, Carnegie
begged you
Hall.
to join Santana.
Yeah,
And of course, for the Pointers, that was me too.
yeah, they called me up. And then, so what happened, I got involved in this church, in this Christian organization, and I was there, in totality, I was there for 10 years. But in the first, let's see, I was like 18 and a half, or maybe 20 when I joined there. So when I'm 24 years old, I'm sitting at my kitchen table after, because I became a landscaper. So I was, you know, home and I was dirty, you know, been working all day and just sitting there. The phone rings, and it's one of Carlos's road managers. And they said, hey, this is Joe Blow, you know. And I said, yeah, okay. He goes, yeah, I work with Carlos. I said, Carlos? He goes, yeah, Santana, you know Carlos. I said, yeah. And he goes, he wants you to come down and rehearse to do an album. And I was like, what? That was my dream. My whole life, when I started playing, I used to see Carlos and I would just be mesmerized by him. Like, oh my God, I want to do that. This is what I want to do. I want to play this kind of music and I want to play with him because he just reaches the depths of my heart. And there the opportunity was, like the Willy Wonka gold ticket. So I was like, oh my God. And it's something in my heart said, you got to go. You got to go to this rehearsal. If anything, out of curiosity, because the people that were in charge at that church were like, you can't do that. That's not serving the Lord. You know, you got to be separated from the world. You got to be separated from secular music. You got to do, you know, God's will, and God's will is not for you to hang out with heathens and blah, blah. And I was like, I had given up my voice when I first got there. I was letting people think for me and give me direction. So I went to the rehearsal, and there's Raul, and there's me, there's Carlos, there's Tom Coster, and I'm like, this has got to be a dream. This can't be happening. So after we're done practicing, Carlos says, okay, it's yours. And I'm like, oh my God. I thought I was being tested, like Jesus was tested by the devil. You know what I mean? I just felt like, I said, I don't think I can do it. And he looked at me like, what? What are you talking about? I said, well, I'm involved in this church and I'm part of the choir and I got these responsibilities. And he goes, so, and what's your point? We still can go out and play and you can go back to your church and it's all good. And Raul's there looking at me, fiddling around with his tape on his fingers, like, what are you doing? Are you actually saying no to this guy? And Carlos and I sat down together on the floor. He goes, I want to talk to you. And he goes, why don't you want to do it? And I said, because I'm serving the Lord. He goes, well, I am too.
That's right.
He says, are you the only one that knows how to serve God and nobody else does? And I was like, well, you know, the Bible has a certain direction, you know, for us to go. And he says, well, that's your philosophy. Because my philosophy is that God is like a rose petal. He's in the middle, and Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad and all the great thinkers are the petals on that flower. And I thought, that sounds really beautiful, but it's against what I've been being taught. Mm-hmm. So we went on and on and on and on and on. And then when I was leaving, one of the managers said to me, okay, we're leaving in 2 weeks. We're going to Japan. Pack your bags. Tell me what you need. We'll get you timbales. We'll get you sticks. Anything you need. Raul was like on board. And then I was like, well, I'm not going. And they were like, and then Raul pulled me aside. He says, dude, because you're lucky I'm your friend. Because I want to beat your ass right now. He goes, you and I, we grew up together doing this. And this is what we've dreamed about doing. And here it is. And you're not doing it. I don't get it. And I said, well, I understand that you don't understand, but I got to do what I got to do. So that was my brush with Santana. And I suffered from that in my heart for years, not having felt what it was like to be on stage with thousands of people playing. I mean, thousands of fans listening to the music, and being with Carlos, because he was like my idol. I just looked up to him because to me, he was one of the greatest inspirations of music that I had ever heard. And I remember looking through, I decided the next day, well, maybe I can record with him. Maybe I can do something. So I was looking in my wallet for his card, and I couldn't find it. And I was looking and looking and looking, and I could never find it. Time went by, and about 2 months later, I look in my wallet, and there it is. And I'm like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. You know, so there was a lot of mixed messages. But I remember that...
I only got one.
Right.
I only got one. It broke my heart. You said that your religion wouldn't let you were following the path to God, and you couldn't do the tour.
Exactly.
And I think you were having a baby.
Yeah, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you and Bill Graham sent, I think, even a bottle of champagne and a gift certificate, you know, of like, oh, so good to see you, and blah, blah, blah. And I was in a different place.
Worked out for the better.
Yeah.
Who knows what you would have gotten into on the road with Carlos? Who knows? Although at that time he was pretty clean.
Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day, do you regret not playing with Carlos? And I thought, if I regret that, does that mean that I wouldn't have been available for my family, for my children, for my, you know, all the things that have, at this point, now that I'm 70 years old, the most thing that I cherish the most is my wife.
Is those 5 years that you would have been on the road with Santana.
And my grandkids.
Absolutely. That's why I wanted him to tell the story.
Wow, incredible.
That was powerful.
And that's why...
Brought me to tears. That's crazy.
And that's why I love Dave so much. Mm-hmm. Because he's always been a kind, understanding, loving person to me. Well, I was a young kid when I was there.
50-60% of the time. But not 100. But that's a great story. Keeps it real. It was a great choice you made.
Yeah. And I ended up leaving that place. And I ended up getting excommunicated from the community.
Sure. It was the period of time you were going through then.
Yeah.
That's it.
But I've been blessed with
Yes.
my beautiful wife. We've been together 38 years.
Right.
I had the privilege of raising her children along with my children. Now we got 9 grandkids.
Right.
And I'm playing with, you know, at first I was scared to, I remember I used to be in so much pain about not having taken that gig once I left that church. And I remember calling Bill Graham up. And I said, Bill, and he answered the phone. Oh, I called and said, may I speak to Bill Graham? And he goes, well, who's this? I said, well, this is Leo Rosales. I used to play with Malo. And they said, all right, hold on a second. Put me on hold. And I was living in Sonora in that church because the end of the world was coming. So that's where we moved to. You know, we had a food
Well,
program.
they were right, but they didn't have their timing.
Their timing was off.
Right.
So Bill gets on the
it was
phone.
like
and he goes,
a cult, like
yeah. Bill gets on the
right.
phone.
The
And,
world was ending. But it took a little longer than they thought. It was.
right. We had a food program. We had barrels of food that we were storing. It was, you know, it was end time church.
Yeah, some of them Malo fuzzy tortillas.
Real fuzzy. They were real fuzzy. Well, Bill gets on the phone. He says, "Who's this?" I said, "This is Leo Rosales from Malo." He goes, "Yeah, what do you want?" I was like,
oh my god.
"Well, you know, I was just wondering if, like, maybe, you know, I'm not in that church anymore, and I thought maybe is there an opportunity to play with Carlos again?" He goes, "Are you kidding me right now?"
Oh my god.
He goes, "You had the opportunity years ago. You mean to tell me you want them to get rid of the person that's playing now so that you can..." He goes, "No, there is no opportunity." And I was like, okay. So those are the kind of feelings that I had ruminating in my spirit for
It's all
years.
for the better. It's all for the
Yeah.
better.
But
Yeah.
here we are
Good.
to be able to tell the tale.
Exactly. Exactly.
And what happened at this meeting, the problem with the band at the time when they had the hit, we were going out on the road. They had a hit record. The band wasn't good enough to go on the road because Richard Bean really was a wonderful guy, but could not play. And we couldn't go out that way. And they have a soprano saxophone player who plays the soprano saxophone part on Suavecito. Right?
Right.
He couldn't play. And Luis quit. Luis Gasca quit the band for his solo career. Tell you, musicians, you guys really make
Terrible
a weird
bunch.
job.
A terrible bunch.
Unbelievable. The decisions you make. Really. I mean, I can understand leaving Carlos for Jesus.
Right?
Leaving Malo for his solo career.
It's unacceptable.
So we have to put a new band together. And they did. But George, make no mistake, George was a wonderful guy, kind, generous, but a nasty businessman. A really tough businessman. And he wanted to structure the band with the new guys, so the new guys got a salary and no percentage of Malo. Only the original partners would have a percentage of Malo. Everybody else, sidemen. So Chris Wong and George and me had a big meeting in my office, in the lobby. My office.
Is this for the Malo Dos?
Yeah, no, I was,
Or for the very first one?
no, Malo Dos.
Yeah, the Malo Dos, yeah.
And explained that all these wonderful horn players, I don't know if it included you and Raul or not,
We were included a little
a
bit.
little bit,
Yeah.
but it was going to be, Malo was going to be the four guys who started it, three guys who started it.
Right, because they had fired Abel already.
Yeah, no, they had not. He went with everybody else. And George caused it. George couldn't deal with his ego, with Abel taking the incredible solos he used to take and singing and arranging the songs. So Abel does not appear on those.
Right.
And that was, if there was one cosmic error that George made, that we all made, it was losing Abel. He was incredible, still is. That's how we say it. Songwriter, arranger, vocal arranger, guitar player. He was the root. But they fired him, and they got rid of everybody, and the rest of the band said, well, the hell with this. We're on the road, we're killing ourselves, we're recording. You're not going to give us a percentage? We're out of here.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Put their horns in their boxes and just walked out the door and left half a band. I think it was just Richard Kermode, myself, Jorge, Pablo,
That was it.
and Arcelio.
We had to start all over again.
Yeah. And we went through
And the band changed
right.
at that moment.
Yeah.
Because up to that moment, it was a street band.
Right.
It was a local barrio band, right? It was a Mission Street band. It was a bunch of guys. And Arcelio was a street guy. He was like, he get in fights
Yeah.
at the shows.
He'd punch you in the mouth and go up and
Oh.
sing. Then,
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it.
I mean, he was tough.
yeah, he was tough.
He'd show you, right?
a little pit
That
bull.
was the vibe. Right, right.
He was a bad dude.
But when that happened, it became a sophisticated, brass-oriented, arrangement-oriented band.
Right.
And Forrest Buchtel came in, and he started arranging the brass. And those brass arrangements, whew, boy,
Yeah, he helped me with Oye Mama.
oh, your mama's, what a record that is.
I hummed the parts to him. And he was sitting there with his book.
Oh,
And
really?
I'd
Is
say,
that what happened?
Yeah, I was humming the parts.
I
And he
know.
was writing them down. He goes, is it like this? Da-da, da-da, ba-ba, ba-da, ba-ba, ba-ba. And I'd say,
Right.
that's it. He goes,
Wow.
okay. And then he would do
I
the
thought
harmony,
he wrote all
set
the
it there.
parts. I thought he wrote all the
No, I
parts.
gave him those parts.
Oh, Leo. Why didn't you tell me?
I gave him all those parts.
He's like, I
But in
just
the
told
beginning, he
you.
goes, hey, why don't we do at the beginning like a bullfight? He goes, I'll start the horn, and then
Leo,
we'll bring the
why
band
didn't you
in.
tell me? I thought
Yeah,
it was
what'd you
all
tell me?
him.
He's like,
Sorry.
I'm telling you
Telling
now.
you now.
If he would have told you, it would have been different.
I wouldn't have given Forrest the credit or the power.
Interesting.
I would have given it to Leo. We could have had any trumpet player or any arranger to write the parts down.
Right.
And that's another credit you could have had.
Yeah, I did a lot on the second album. I did some horn arrangements on,
Yeah.
not Latin Boogaloo, but Hala. That was a great tune.
And I thought the second record was fantastic.
Yes.
Warners couldn't hear it.
Because it changed, like you said. It went from street guys in the Mission to sophisticated horn section.
The chord changes were different. Chord changes were all very, and Commode was, really helpful that way, like Tom Coster was for Carlos.
It's kind of like what Carlos did with his first couple of albums. That was Santana.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we started going to John McLaughlin and
Right.
Carlos playing, and it just went into
That
a
was
fusion.
Gianquinto.
What's that?
That was Alberto who did that. Gianquinto.
Yeah. Seems to happen a lot to bands that.
Well, they start becoming, at the beginning, Malo was its audience. Get what I mean? You were a fan of Carlos. You were on the street. You were from Balboa. You were 18 years old. You were the audience.
Right.
2 years later, you were sophisticated in tastes. You heard a lot more music, and you wanted to be something better. George, certainly. Carlos, definitely. And the character of the band was lost.
Yeah, the nena, the pana, the café, suavecito, that kind of feel, very simple.
Raw.
Yeah, very simple,
And
but
the chords were all typical
yeah,
Latin chords, but they started going a different way.
instead of 3 chords, it was maybe 5 or 6
Oh,
chords.
there were much more, yeah. That's right.
Yeah,
So it was a big, monumental change. Business-wise, ego-wise, and it just changed.
Well, the band that I have now, Momotombo SF, I honor what Arcilio left. You know, the Malo band in Paul's care and his daughter's care and his wife. And so the name of our band, we took the first song from the second album, Momotombo, and called the band that with former members of Malo, and we have Bill Ortiz, who was a former member of Santana. Yeah. And so we played all those beautiful Nena, Café, Pana,
Really?
Suavecito, and we even do a couple of Santana tunes in honor of the guys that played with him. So we don't try to pretend that we are Malo, but we are people that love the Malo music and try to play it with sincerity and true to form and play the songs like we own it.
Well, I just want to make one more remark about this. I don't know how much time we have. Those records sound great. Malo Dos sounds great. It could be recorded yesterday. And I don't know if you've listened to it recently or anybody in the room. Boy, those records sound good.
Yeah. They were almost like ahead of their time to,
Oh, yeah.
to a point. because-
Sonically,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Because what we were dealing with was the funk and the drums, the congas and the timbales, and the guitar. And as you know from Latin music, the bass has got to be
Right in
right
your
there,
face.
right? Plus vocal harmonies and a complete 5-man brass section. And it was really a skill that Fred Cotero, God bless him, had,
Yes, he was great.
because he'd worked with everybody. He knew what to do with the band live. So we were able to record live. I don't know if you remember that,
Yeah.
but I liked recording live. Nowadays, people put on samples, they put on the bass drum, they put on the hi-hat, and they put on clicks, and everybody was in the room.
I remember you wanted me to be on the first album. You said, I want you to do something on there. He goes, how about play the Guido? And I said, okay. He goes, all right, so you're just going to play the Guido on this song. All right, so get in there, put on the headphones on, I'll cue you in, and then we played the song. So I start playing the Guido, and I start soloing on it. And he stops, he goes, what are you doing? So I'm playing the Guido. He goes, no, you're not, because that's not what I told you to do. He goes, play it simple, up and down, and
Right.
that is it. I said, yeah. I said, okay. All right, here we go. You ready? Ready, okay. Cue, boom, we're in. Soloing, and then start doing it again, and stop. He goes, hey, what?
I don't
What are you
remember any of
doing?
this.
Really? Stop it.
Yeah, he says, stop. And then it took me a while to get the concept to just play the time.
You're only the Guiro player in the
Yeah,
band.
you're only the Guido
Right.
player. What
It's
the
not
hell are you
Guido,
doing?
it's
I need more
Guido
cowbell.
Malo.
Malo and the Guido man.
More cowbell.
More cowbell, more Guido, please. Yeah. And I remember that you said, I said, I don't know if we have a Guido here. So one of your engineers had a motorcycle. So he goes, where can you go get one? I said, well, up at the Mission Rebels up in San Francisco. And I don't know what dude's name was, but you said, hey, get on your bike and take him up to Mission Rebels so we can go get a Guido. So we're on the 101 at night, just charging up the street, and there's nobody there, so I'm climbing up the window, stinking through, fall into this floor, go out there, get the Guido, get back on the motorcycle, and get back to the
Right.
studio.
I don't remember any of these stories.
Yeah.
So, but my
But the
first
sound of the records, I think, is really important,
Yeah.
because Fred, who was the producer of Abraxas, Fred Cotero, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we had a company called Cotero Sound Company, and he really produced a great record.
Yeah, no, he was great. He made Chapito's timbales sound. I said, make my sound like his,
Right.
because no other band ever had that sound like that he had on his timbales. It was so
Well,
beautiful.
actually, we started recording together in New York, and he was the engineer on my Mongo records. So he knew enough to record the timbales with one mic underneath to get the subtones. Because if you record like most people record timbales, they put 2 condenser microphones on the top. So all you get is the high end.
Right. You don't get nothing from the bottom.
There's no dome,
Right.
dome. That didn't exist. Oh, he was
Yeah, he was great.
great.
First time I ever saw you guys was on American Bandstand.
Oh my God.
Were you responsible for getting them on American Bandstand?
Yeah.
So I had a vision of the singer, but you were singing it.
Yes.
Yeah, I was lip syncing to Richard's voice.
Really?
Yeah, that's how
Richard
they did
was
it on
gone.
American Bandstand.
And Arcelio, God bless him, couldn't sing Suavecito. So Leo sang it live, but
That-
on the,
Rolling on the River with Kenny Rogers.
right. So the TV shows were all lip sync, and he would sync to Richard's voice.
On American Bandstand, and that's how they did it there. We didn't. All the amps were on the ground,
Nothing.
but
no
nothing
sound.
was plugged in. You just were mimicking.
Okay, so it wasn't actually the studio recording because it was.
It was the studio recording.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it was on the American Bandstand. On Midnight Special, it might have been, but that's the Kenny Rogers one. The American Bandstand was live because I could actually. It was only 2-part. It was Arcelio on the side, and you singing lead.
Right, but I was singing to a tape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
An American on Rolling on the River, that was totally live. When we played like 2 songs on that, when we did Suavecito, I think we did Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, on Rolling on the River with Kenny Rogers.
Like you guys can remember all this stuff. It's unbelievable.
And then the tapes got burned in a fire at Paramount. In
What?
the safes where they had all the film. That's why there's no recall of us playing on American Bandstand other than still shots that I have like a handful of still shots. You could see the American Bandstand logo and you could see all of us playing. But
So
as
just
far
to
as
say-
real,
American Bandstand was a racist, segregationist operation. Dick Clark was a racist. There were no black people on American Bandstand in Philadelphia. And that's why Soul Train started. Put black people on TV. So when Dick Clark moved to LA, he had changed the show because Cornelius was kicking his butt. He actually got sued by the NAACP in Philadelphia.
Wow.
And Malo was a very unusual act for him to put on. It was almost like a token act.
yeah.
Very
All the heavyweights were on American Bandstand.
Yeah, but not black.
I never knew that.
I didn't even remember you did that show.
Yeah.
How many views did it get on YouTube?
Well, the one on
Which is the
Kenny
one-
Rogers Rolling on the River has 5 million views.
Really?
5 million. And the Malo, the very first album, has over like 200 million
What?
views. Yeah, if you go to YouTube and you push
You'll
the
see
out,
it.
you'll see the bottom
Man,
of the
get them to send us a check.
right.
Look how he looks at me, Levette. Get to it. You saw how he looked at me. That's why he's laughing.
No, but that's fantastic. That streaming income goes on forever. It's
I mean, yeah,
fantastic.
it
I
does.
had no idea it was that popular.
Yeah, the following is there. The fans are there. I mean, they
Yeah, but
love to
see,
hear the music.
when Chris was so incompetent, I decided I had to manage the band with him. Because, I mean, he didn't know how to set up a tour, or he didn't know how to write a check, right? He was really a wonderful guy, smart, very intelligent, great taste in art, antiques, but just didn't know the record business.
Right.
And
You know who came by to see us playing? We were playing at the Longboard in Pacifica. Was Doug Tracy. There's a name out of the past.
wow, he was a great guy too.
Doug Tracy and his beautiful wife, and they came out to Longboard.
When
And when
was
I
that?
saw him, I just saw that
When was
beautiful.
that?
That was maybe 6 months ago.
Still have a mustache?
Yes.
Well, you have his email address.
I'll give it
I'd
to you.
love to speak to Doug Tracy.
Yeah.
He was great.
Wow.
Who did I steal him from? I stole him from Tower of Power, I think. I can't remember. What a great guy. And he was really the one who ran Malo.
Yeah, he
Chris-
kept us in line out there
Chris had no idea.
in between his scotch.
Oh my God.
That's true. But we used to have a lot of fun on the road because I went on the road with him, especially to the New York trip and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sneaking into other people's rooms and
We had a good
people
time.
with shaving cream and
Oh my goodness.
Short
The
sheet in the
stories.
beds, taking the pins out
he's
of the
holding back the
doors.
stories.
All that stuff. All that stuff.
because they were kids. They were 20.
I was shocked when Leo had told us in the last podcast that he was 16
Yeah,
when he joined Malo. And I was like,
No,
what?
17.
17.
Yeah, actually, almost 18. 17 and a half.
That's crazy. That is
so
so
it was
crazy.
either Malo or Vietnam.
Right. Do you know
Oh,
that
well.
this fella sent me a CD of Malo when we played at the Village Gate?
Wow.
A live copy
Who
of
had
Malo.
that? Who has that?
Somebody, this guy named Mac Castillo, he sent me because he's a collector. So he asks questions. He finds people that have CDs or posters or tickets or, whatever. And it was really cool from New York, from the Village Gate, because it was simulcast
Yes.
on KMPX.
Well, that was the purpose of it.
Right. Not KMPX.
It wasn't just KMPX. It was across the country.
Yeah. And it was raw, like you said. And I could hear how the more we played, the more refined it got, and the
Yeah.
better it got,
Right.
the less busy it got,
Right.
and the clarity.
Yeah.
Because I know when we were playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go for those months, we were on fire.
Oh, man.
The band was like top
Arcelio had a
notch.
fight with Dino Valenti in the parking lot.
From Quicksilver, right?
Like, he must have had a fight with everybody.
Everybody.
I think he even punched
He
a
punched
constable
people.
out in
Who?
Canada.
Who?
A constable, a police officer.
Oh, that sounds like him.
RC, he didn't mess. He didn't mess around.
Papa don't take no
Yeah.
mess.
No, but he protected me. He thought of himself as my protector, Don't mess around with Rubinson, Okay.
Okay. You had your own bodyguard.
I did. And the best food in the world at his house.
Oh, I know.
Oh, boy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm about, I don't know unless you have questions.
No,
Yeah.
this is not live. I mean, this is live.
That's live.
But-
That's American. That's Rolling on the River. That's
Yes,
not
that's the
American
one.
Bandstand.
It was American Bandstand, but that's what I was asking. That's
That
you
was-
singing.
Yes.
That's when this was.
That's
could-
Rolling on the River with
Well,
Kenny Rogers.
YouTube has it as American
They
Bandstand.
got it
so-
wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if you go to the one where the guy does the intro,
Yeah.
he'll tell you that it was broadcasted from Toronto,
Uh huh.
but we recorded it in LA.
So, why were you singing it instead of Richard?
He was
And then,
fired.
that one there,
Why was he fired?
Richard Bean, I just told the whole story.
Oh, because he wasn't talented enough?
no, because he wasn't.
Playing
They
tim-
wanted a timbal player, and he was a
I
trumpet
just told
player.
the whole
And
story.
But
about
why
he
wouldn't you
was
just keep
fired.
him on vocals and just get another timbala player?
Because another guy on the road is $2,000 a week.
not only that, but Arcelio was the lead singer,
Right.
and I think having two guys that wanted to command the stage might have presented.
Well, I
a
don't
problem.
think Richard wanted to command the stage. But he thought he was a timbali player. And he didn't have stage presence. I mean, he kind of... But it was really too bad. Because if we could have, we should have. Getting rid of Abel, terrible mistake.
I was brought in after all of that was done.
Right.
I was innocent bystander. Your dad called me up and told me, come down here and we want you to audition.
And there's another reason. There were 11 guys in the band. The record royalties had to be shared 11 ways. Get rid of 3 or 4 guys, and there's more for George. And I hate to be that harsh, but that's the truth. So the original partners got more if they had fewer equity partners.
It's a tough business.
Yep.
People ask me if I retired. And I say, no, I didn't retire, I survived.
That's true.
You too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 'cause not everybody's here to tell the story. That's true. So after the 4 albums were done and recorded, what happened after that?
We were blown out. It was enough for me. The whole sound changed. The drummer's name, what was his name?
Tony Smith.
Tony Smith. Very talented guy.
Funk. He was
What?
a funk drummer.
Yeah, but he was a beautiful singer.
Yes,
Right.
it was.
Beautiful voice. And he played really well, but it got tired. And the direction went out the window.
Didn't Arcilio leave and then Willie G became the singer for a minute? I think the last album.
I wasn't really
That
involved
was on
in
the
last album.
Evolution, I believe.
Was that the third or fourth?
Had to be the fourth.
Yeah. Because Arcilio, he wasn't there and I think he went back to New York.
Yeah.
And then he came
got
back
sick.
here with his New York
I
band.
recorded Tony Smith singing.
Right. Remember Moving Away, that song? That's a classic. Bass and drumming and the whole thing was just really, Malo, Tower of Power, Cold Blood, all mixed into one.
Yeah, but that was what I was producing right then.
So Tony Smith, you were there.
Yeah, but of course, but I was producing Cold Blood and Tower of Power, right? And I knew brass, I knew those kind of bands, but the whole band lost its direction. And getting rid of Arcilio, I mean, that's the sound of the band. So, wasn't great.
Yeah. Mistakes along the way.
Yeah,
The
but
road
things
to hell's
happen.
paved with good
You get
intentions.
married, you get divorced, you find a new life. And as I was just telling an old friend of mine, this is the best time of my life. So things get better,
Right.
as
I
you
agree.
can tell me.
Yeah.
But I feel worst for Abel, because he was really a talent.
He's a diamond in the rough for sure.
He wasn't in the rough, Leo. He was polished. He was ready to go. And if he was white, he would have made it. So help me. I brought him to Warner Brothers.
Wow, different time.
So if you were to manage Malo now, what would you do differently?
Everything. Everything. I would have told the truth. George, it's not your band. It's Abel's band and Pablo's band. They're the music of the band. They know what they're doing, right? And we can't change the band for your ego. It has to be what it was. But I looked out for my own self-interest. I had something going here, right? From scratch. And I didn't have it's not courage. It didn't have the vision to see where it should go. So that was a mistake. Also, too much echo on the timbales.
More cowbell.
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we needed more wheel.
Right.
That's the problem.
I mean, to go back in time, being 18 years old and being in a recording studio with the likes of Dave Rubinson and
Right.
other engineers was like magic. Because I'd never been in a scene like that. I mean, little recording studios here and there, when we were coming up and we had our garage bands and we're going to go make a little demo tape or whatever. But being in that studio and being educated on what it means to record, what it means to listen, what it means to play as a team was a whole different ballgame than being on the stage.
Right.
Because, your ego gets a little inflated when you're on the stage. People are looking at you and you're,
All the attention.
The difference is that when you're in the recording studio, you have to learn to not play everything you know.
Right.
So when he played the wheel, he
Oh,
was playing
shit.
everything he knew. Right? And there were guitar players like that. They go in the studio and they play everything they know in the bass, like we were just talking about Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead. And he was always playing everything he knew. He'd play every note he ever learned, right, all the time. And the hard thing in the studio is to find your place in the music
Yeah.
and live in it.
It's an art
Carol
to be
Kay,
a studio musician.
It
It's
takes
an art.
art
Carol
to be
Kay
a
was good at
producer.
that.
Yeah.
To be a producer, your job is to make everybody see what their place is
Right. Corral.
and find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Carol Kay would lay that bass down perfect. You know, she's the bassist that did ba-doom, boom, 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 boom. The beat goes on. That's her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's part of that crew from L.A., right?
Yep.
The something machine or wrecking machine.
Yeah.
They were great. They were all top-notch musicians that recorded with everybody and didn't get any credit for it.
Mm-hmm. Because they didn't tell
Got a lot
David.
of money.
David would have made sure they got credit.
They got a lot of money.
So after everybody, I guess it kind of just fizzled out, and then my dad got sick, and then he came back. So what happened after that? My dad just kind of picked up the Malo torch and said, "I'm just going to keep going," or how did that all play out?
I have no
That's
idea.
pretty much what he did.
That's what he did. Yeah.
Because that's all he knew.
Yeah.
Not all he knew, but music was his passion.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the greatest time in his life.
Yeah. And he kept it for 50 years.
Oh man, it's great.
Yeah. For 50 years, Arcilio was married to
Yeah.
that
Malo.
Malo.
He was.
You know?
Tell
to
me,
the day
did
he
he keep
passed.
punching people even when he was like 60 years old?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Tell him the story. Well, no, we can't tell that story, but we'll keep that off camera.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give a little. We
Wait
were
till you hear this.
we were somewhere. Well, actually, Martin Kent was telling me they were at a venue, and another band was playing, and they kicked Martin out, and he had to go back and get his coat. So they wouldn't let him in. So he told Arcilio, and Arcilio, he kicked the door down and gave him the whatnot.
And he got his jacket.
He got his jacket.
You know it. RC.
But there's a couple times in, when he was sick and he was in the wheelchair and he would tell you to pick him
Oh,
up so
my
he could kick
goodness.
somebody's ass.
Arcelio's in a wheelchair,
Great guy, Arcilio.
and he tells me,
Yeah.
"Fake Malo's playing in Stockton. Come pick me up."
He's in a wheelchair.
He's ready
I'm
to
like-
go.
Oh, he's ready to go.
So I'm like, Arcelio, what? I'm living in Sacramento. He lives in Fresno, and he wants me to go to Fresno, drive to Stockton. So I said, "What are we gonna do?" He goes, "Oh, we're gonna fuck him up."
And he's in a wheelchair.
RC.
And I was like, "Nah, man, I can't go." Well, I'm thinking, I know he's mean. I know he's in a wheelchair. I don't want to go to prison. I don't know if he's going to shoot him in the face or what.
We don't know what the intentions were. The real intentions were.
Anyway, basically what I know.
Yes. But thank you. That was an amazing story. It really, really was.
It's great to be with you, Dave.
Yes.
Great.
And thank you for being
I
here with
learned a
us.
lot.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
I did.
I know. Leo had me in tears.
Oh, sorry.
It's a powerful story.
Baby, I don't know.
So what do we say in the end, Leo?
What do we say?
The church says,
Amen.
Amen. That's it. Good.
Muzzle top,
Muzzle talk.
right? A time.